Know what you think when you emote. Hello, this is Dr. Bin Song at Washington College. The first step of philosophical counseling in the form of logic-based therapy is to identify emotional reasoning. In other words, we need to find exactly what people think when they indicate strong emotions. Human beings are marvelous creatures. Sometimes our emotions are driven by instincts and do not have much thought or reasoning as their support. For instance, when you see a bear looming in a forest, the first reaction from us may be to fear and flee. In this case, strictly speaking, no much thought is involved. However, in most cases, human emotions are either generated or magnified by thought or beliefs. This cannot be more visible than all those social and political movements in human history, when people could fight each other for their divergent beliefs, religions, and ideologies. Nevertheless, people are actually not quite aware of the deep beliefs that drive their thought when their behaviors are intensively disturbed by emotions. These beliefs may be inherited from their culture, influenced by their family, indoctrinated by varying propaganda machines, or simply shaped by social media. If all these unexamined beliefs are sound and realistic, congratulations, we are lucky, and at least we will not be too crazy when emoting and acting upon them. However, if these beliefs are not so, seen from the perspective of philosophical counseling, they are all like hidden toxins in our mind, which would profoundly frame our emotional reactions to events in the world, and eventually be able to impact our health. More importantly, without a method to examine, how can we know that these beliefs are sound or not? If we do not know whether they are sound or not, why would we emote and act in a certain way? So, one great advantage that a philosophically based therapy has is to provide a method for individuals to uncover those deep, hardwired beliefs behind their emotions. While doing so, a philosophical therapist can uncover these beliefs in the most concise, striking, and impressive way so that we can continually work on them later. Namely, either enhance or rectify them, so that our emotional and behavioral reaction to the world can be more constructive. Therefore, in this unit, we will discuss the first step of LBT to identify the emotional reasoning. Let's start from one example of a possible conversation between a philosophical counselor and a counselee who is bothered by his relationship with his father, who sometimes says very rude words to him. Counselor, how do you feel when your dad says you are stupid? Counselee, then I started to tell myself, well, maybe my dad really just don't give a damn. So you are thinking that your dad does not really care about how you might be feeling when he tells you that you are stupid. Yes, that's right. Like he doesn't have any regard for how this might make me feel. And then I start to think that maybe he is right. I see. You start to question your self-worth. Yes, that's exactly what I do. And he says this a lot. When he tells you you are stupid, what are you telling yourself? I feel so unworthy. Unworthy of him? Yes, but also unworthy of anyone, like I'm worthless. And I really feel down about myself. Tell me about that. What else are you telling yourself? I start to think that I should have never been born. Maybe then he would have been happy. Are you depressed about the fact that your dad often calls you stupid? Yes, very much so. It is always there. I can hear his voice telling me I'm stupid every time I think I might do something wrong. I feel so hopeless. So is this your reasoning? Are you telling yourself that since your dad tells you that you are stupid, then you must be worthless? Yes, that's it. Here, through a respectful, empathetic, and careful conversation, The philosophical counselor puts the words into the counselee's mouth and helps him to uncover the process of reasoning when he felt down about his father's words. We can write down the reasoning as such. Rule: if my dad often tells me that I am stupid, then I would think I must be worthless. Report: my dad often tells me that I am stupid. Conclusion: so I must be worthless. The overall process of the emotional reasoning is deductive in the form of a syllogism. It includes a general rule to say that, under a certain circumstance, one will react in a certain way. In the syllogistic reasoning, this rule functions as a major premise. The report that such a circumstance indeed happens functions as a minor premise, with the final conclusion that someone indeed reacts in a certain way. Please pay attention to the letter we used above. O means the intentional object of an emotion, and R means the rating of this object. In other words, people's emotions are always about something or somebody, which is the intentional object O of an emotion, and eventually triggered by a thought of rating or assessment about the value that the intentional object has to human beings. In the example we raised, the consolee's emotion of feeling down or depression is about his dad's words, object, and triggered by his assessment that his dad is right and thus he has no self-worth, rating. We can raise many other examples about this basic structure of humans' emotional reasoning, namely, emotion triggered by object plus rating. For instance, because Peter, my roommate, ate my cake when I am absent. Object, he's really selfish. Rating, I'm very angry about him. Emotion, because Martin Luther King Jr. fought for freedom and equality. Object, he is a hero. Rating, I generally admire him. Emotion. Among the components of emotional reasoning, the most interesting part is rating. Those statements of rating about the value of happening events to human beings. These statements are not purely about facts, and they actually imply a certain attitude of human beings towards these facts. In other words, they prompt humans to do certain kind of things about those facts, such as condemn, condone, reject, accept, discommand, command, admonish, recommend, proscribe, prescribe, demand, request, and so forth. As you may have already noticed, negative emotions are quite often based upon unreasonable rating statement. For instance, the consolee thinks he is worthless because of his dad's words. What his dad said is just a fact, but his evaluation of his dad's words so as to think I must be worthless leads to a very self-defeating emotion of depression. He clearly needs to re-examine his rating statement in order to eliminate that emotion and move forward in his life. However, it is normally not enough to uncover the reasoning that a client uses to infer from a particular event to a particular reaction. That's because for beliefs that are hardwired into people's consciousness or even subconsciousness, and are so powerful as to elicit people's varying emotional reactions to the world, they normally enjoy a certain degree of generality. In other words, these beliefs imply a pattern, a mindset, or even a persistent worldview regarding how a human can interpret and react to varying worldly events. Until we continue to use the same method of counseling and syllogistic reasoning to uncover these most general and deepest beliefs, we cannot put a finger on what is really happening to our mind when we emote strongly. So let's continue the conversation to see how the counselor helps to uncover the deepest roots of the consolee's self-disturbing emotions. So let's look at one of your premises. You believe that if your dad often tells you that you are stupid, then you must be worthless. Yes, that's right. So you must think that his opinion matters a great deal. Yes, I do. But why is it so important to you? He's my dad. But why does that matter so much? Your dad is not supposed to think you are stupid. So if he approved of you and thought you were the greatest intellect since Albert Einstein, then you would think that you are a worthy person? Yes, I suppose so. I would not think I was an Albert Einstein, but I would really be flattered and feel very good about myself if he thought that. So you are basing your self-worth on what others think. Yes, on what my dad thinks. And his opinion matters so much because he is your dad. Yes, that's right. So is this your reasoning? You are saying that if you don't have the approval of your dad, then you are worthless. So since your dad often tells you that you are stupid, then you must be worthless. Yes, that's exactly it. Here, the philosophical counselor helps the counselee to make manifest a higher order of syllogistic reasoning that is premised upon an even more general rule. Let's write it down in this way. If I don't have the approval of my dad, then I'm worthless. If my dad often tells me that I'm stupid, then I don't have the approval of my dad. So if my dad often tells me that I'm stupid, then I must be worthless. My dad often tells me that I'm stupid, so I must be worthless. In this newly unfolded higher order reasoning, the more general rule 2 is helped by the bridging premise to lead to a conclusion, which is the original rule 1. It is a more general rule because it does not pertain to a particular deed, such as dad often tells me that I'm stupid. Rather, what the dad tells is just another instance against the general attitude of approval that the counselee is demanding. When our uncovering effort runs this deeper, we are more clear of what problems the counselee has regarding his emotional reasoning. He based his self-worth upon others' approval, which seems not that reasonable if we give it a further thought. If you are a philosophical counselor and find this pattern of thought of your counselee, you will have a sense about what is going wrong here, and the general premise you now find will drive you to go even further, since perhaps the counselee does not only demand approval from his dad, he may demand that from other people as well, so the conversation can continue to proceed like this. Do you demand approval of others besides your dad? I don't care if I don't have the approval of people who are not important to me. It's just the people who really matter to me, such as like my close friends and my boss. So is this your reasoning? You are saying that you are worthless unless you have the approval of everyone who matters to you. So, since your dad matters to you, if you don't have this approval, then you are worthless. Yes, that's my reasoning exactly. So you are saying that you must have the approval of everyone who matters to you. And if you don't get that approval, then you are worthless. Is this your reasoning? Yes, I must have their approval. Otherwise, I start to think I'm worthless. You see the trick, right? Once you hit upon a premise which uses strong words such as all, every, must, we finally find those most general beliefs that indicate a pattern of thought. And these are the deepest driving ideas for people's emotional reaction to the world. So overall, the emotional reasoning of this counseling can be written down as such. I must have the approval of all those who matter to me. If I must have the approval of all those who matter to me, then if I don't have the approval of someone who matters to me, I'm worthless. So if I don't have the approval of someone who matters to me, then I am worthless. If I don't have the approval of my dad, then I don't have the approval of someone who matters to me. So if I don't have the approval of my dad, then I'm worthless. If my dad often tells me that I'm stupid, then I don't have the approval of my dad. So if my dad often tells me that I'm stupid, then I must be worthless. My dad often tells me that I'm stupid, so I must be worthless. In a more simplified form, we can write down the above reasoning as such. Rule: only if I have the approval of all those who matter to me, I am a worthy person. Report: but my father often tells me that I am stupid, and hence disapprove of me. Conclusion: therefore, I am worthless. When our efforts proceed into this step, we will immediately realize how problematic the counselor's thought is regarding his strong emotion of depression. Look at this most general rule. It is neither realistic nor reasonable. It is not realistic because nobody can have the approval of all people who matter to them all the time. If you premise your self-worth upon that, this is a mission impossible. It is not reasonable because it remains at least debatable whether one's individual worth rests upon the approval of others. Many philosophers do not have this view, and they refuted this view using very good arguments. In terms used by LBT, we can say that when the counselor reasoned like this, he committed at least two fallacies. Firstly, he demands perfection, since he demands everyone must indicate approval to him in order to prove he is worthy. And secondly, he commits a jumping on the bandwagon fallacy, because he readily conforms to what some individual or groups of individuals are saying or doing, and thus is inauthentic to his genuine, independent, and free-thinking self. In other words, once we uncover the most general rule leading to our emotional reactions and thus identify the emotional reasoning, we can start to debunk it if it is wrong and proceed to the next steps of philosophical counseling.